Great. Welcome to Senate Education this Thursday, February 16th at 2:31 in the afternoon. We are slightly delayed, and I apologize for that. We have, thanks to our very talented committee assistant, Aiden Ross, we have rearranged things a little bit and rescheduled some folks for next week from the SNAP program. We didn't want to rush that testimony given the seriousness of it. But I am pleased to kick the afternoon off with two students from the Sharon Academy. And I know you were here in the building today and had hoped to be with us in person. I know that you were in house education earlier, I believe, in person. And what I thought we would do, thank you first of all for reaching out and asking to be a part of our conversations. I know we also have Mary Newman, who is the head of school, and is it Ms. Newman? Dr. Newman? Okay.
Ms. Newman is fine. Mary is fine.
Okay, Mary. Thanks for joining us. Would you mind just starting before we turn it over to your students, telling us a little bit about Sharon Academy, where it's located, how many students, grades, just a little background.
Yep, sure. So the Sharon Academy is in Sharon, Vermont on Route 14. So about 40 minutes south of Montpelier, and we are a 7 through 12 independent school. We have about 155 to 160 students. About 80% of them are publicly funded, 81% come from sending towns and are publicly funded, and the other 20 pay privately. We have open enrollment, we have special education. Our status shifted last year when we worked with the AOE to be an approved independent school meeting education quality standards. And I also will just let you know that Phoebe is telling me that she is having trouble with video and audio. So it is possible that Phoebe won't be able to participate. So Chloe did this on his own earlier today, and I know has it. If Phoebe can, she will, but I just wanted to let you know she might not be able to.
Okay. Any questions for Mary from the committee? Good. Okay, great. Terrific. If you would stay with us, that would be wonderful. Chloe, great to see you. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
You and I had an opportunity to meet briefly in the cafeteria this morning and say hello. I think you were with, I don't remember who you were with. I thought you were with the head of school then.
I was with the head of the middle school, Andrew Lane.
Head of the middle school. Okay, all right. Thank you. I just want to make sure Mary's telling us the truth here. Chloe, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us why you want to talk to us today.
Sure. My name is Chloe Evans. I go to the Sharon Middle School. I'm in 8th grade. And I moved from another town to go to school here.
Okay. And tell us about the Sharon Academy. Tell us about, what you like, what you don't like. Tell us why what's your message to us today? I know
Okay.
you asked to be in house education earlier today.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a misconception that independent schools are just for rich, privileged kids. And that's not my story, nor is the story of many of my peers. I was heavily bullied and mistreated at my last school. I'm a member of many minorities that were not widely accepted there. I was called the Ensler on many separate occasions. And my experience in the former public school I attended has left me with diagnosed trauma and many scars. Another notable situation that happened to me while in public school was where a few kids were yelling that I carry diseases because I'm Black. This occurred in the classroom, and it wasn't shut down. The sub was on her phone, and apparently she didn't notice. I didn't feel safe, and I would often fake sick just so I wouldn't have to face the people bullying me. Public school works for so many kids, but it just doesn't work for me. And I didn't think there would ever be a place where a school environment where it could work for me until I enrolled in Sharon. at Sharon, if I'm sick, I try everything in my power to look as well as possible, just so I can go to school. Sharon's the first place since kindergarten that I felt like myself. It has let me grow and change and has supported me while I've done that. My mental health has been prioritized in every way possible. An example of this is when Devin Holmes passed by self-inflicted death, and we had a whole day off with optional classes, and many counselors are brought in as well. And they let us grieve and reminisce and live in his memory for a day. And that is something I will ever be grateful for. I have met genuine, kind people who think like me. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't switched to TSA.
Any questions for Chloe? Terrific. Chloe, so tell us, let's see, you and I chatted a little bit this morning. So you ended up moving to the town of Sharon so that you could go to Sharon Academy?
Yep.
Okay. And your parents, they initiated that? And Mary, if somebody isn't from one of the sending towns, then how do they make their way to Sharon Academy if they're interested in being a part of Sharon Academy?
So if a student does not live in a sending town and therefore lives in a town with a designated school, they can choose to come to the Sharon Academy and pay privately. The tuition amount is the same whether you are coming from a sending town with public dollars or paying out of pocket. But that is what families who decide not to move to a sending town but want their children to go to TSA do if they can.
And is there a boarding program like you see at St. Johnsbury Academy?
There is not.
There's not, so it's completely a day school. And what about if I met this morning a family whose kids are in public school. They were trying to make a move just to another public school because of some bullying situations. And in those cases, no financial aid is available. But do you offer financial aid to students if they are coming in from another town, or is that just impossible?
We have a scholarship for middle school students. We do not offer financial aid other than a fee waiver to high school students. So any family 7 through 12 can apply for a fee waiver for the annual fee we charge and free and reduced lunch. But the scholarships we offer are only to 7th and 8th graders.
Anything else? Yeah, Senator Hashim.
Just generally curious, for both Mary and Chloe, could you share a bit more about what some of the programming is like at the Sharon Academy, extracurriculars, languages, and just really out of curiosity?
Go for it, Chloe.
Sure. In the middle school, there's a Spanish class, and there's also after school sports, like in the fall, there's soccer and basketball in the winter. And there's Dungeons and Dragons that meets twice a week, two separate Dungeons and Dragons groups. And of course, there's a homework club.
Full backing with the D&D club. That's awesome. Thank you.
So this is important for us to pull apart a little bit. So one foreign language is offered?
In the middle school, yes.
In the middle school. And then high school, what are some of the offerings there in terms of foreign languages? Mary might chime in here.
I am really hesitant to chime in because I really was thinking that this was just Chloe and Phoebe, but that is a question I can answer. Yeah, we have French and Spanish at the high school.
Yeah, okay. Anything else, Chloe, that you think we should know? You're a student here in Vermont. This is the Senate Education Committee. We make policies all the time that impact a range of issues that you might be working on yourself, or you might know students that are coming up, or I don't know, bumping up against different issues. Anything else that you can think of that you would like us to be focused on? Okay. Well, thank you. And I don't believe, so it doesn't sound like Phoebe's gonna make it.
Yeah, I'm getting texts from her saying that it's not working, so sorry about that. I'm sure
Yeah.
she's very sorry to not be able to speak, but
If she'd like to, she can always submit something in writing.
that's great. Thank you.
We'd be happy to just email it to our committee assistant, Hayden Ross, and he will send it around to everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Great,
much.
great. All right, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Anybody else here interested? I know I see a few people. Mr. Olson, would you like to introduce yourself to the committee and your guest?
So Oliver Olson, this is my former legislator, served 6 years in.
Oliver is the former legislator, yes, yes.
Yes, not this guy, not yet anyway. And this guy here is Karsten, my son, who's a sixth grader at Long Trail School.
Great. And you were here today also to talk to people a little bit about your school. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Vermont's first IB school,
Oh,
Excellent.
yeah,
What's IB?
International Baccalaureate.
oh, great, great. And you like your school? How many students?
240.
Okay. And it's a day school?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what are your favorite classes?
I like them all.
You like them all? That's great, that's great. So tell me again what grade 6?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
French?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Tu parles français, right? Good, right, yeah. Elle parle français aussi. Elle. Yeah. French every day?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, that's great. And is there something in particular that you really like about Long Trail School? And maybe there's something you don't like about Long Trail School?
Not really. There's homework, which I didn't get at my old school at all.
Uh-huh,
And there's not like, it's not like overloading at all, so, yeah, that's what I kind of like about it.
okay.
Like,
So you get some homework,
yeah, some homework, but like not too much.
okay. Well, that sounds good, that's
Yeah,
good, yeah. And Mass, do you have siblings?
yes,
Yeah, older or younger?
both. Both.
Well, okay. And are they at the school also?
No.
No, okay. Great. As the parent, do you want to say anything about Long Trail? Has it been a good fit?
Would you say
Yeah.
that's a question for him?
Yeah.
Well, you get some feedback, I'm sure.
So yeah, we have so we have 3 children. One, our daughter's in public school.
Yeah.
Karsten's obviously at Long Trail, and we have one child with some pretty extreme multiple disabilities, and he's in a therapeutic school because his needs can't be met in public or general ed independent school. So he's in a therapeutic school. So we certainly experience a wide variety of educational opportunities here at Vermont.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, why did you pick an IB curriculum versus a US curriculum?
Well, for the middle school, he hasn't quite gotten into that yet. So, when we get to high school, we'll figure out, what the right fit is for him. So it's a little early to make that decision, but his mom is from France, so he's bilingual, and his aunt is actually an educator in France, so that certainly has some appeal.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Glad you could pop in.
Yeah.
Yeah, really glad. Yeah, and you're welcome to stick around. We're going to hear about technology next in about 5 minutes. So if you want to stick around, you're welcome to. Great. And for those of you, again, I'll just say Oliver Olson was in the House how many years? 6 years as a independent. Now Kelly Ayala's district, I believe. Correct. Yes.
So
And
what towns is this?
Well, it's changed a little bit.
Dorset?
Jamaica, Londonderry, Stratton, Weston, and Winhall originally, and it's kind of shifted around a little bit.
Somewhat my neck of the woods.
Yes, exactly. So your district at one point, Londonderry is flipped back
Yeah.
and forth. It's been in the Wyndham district, and it was in the Windsor district, and now I think
it's Bennington district. Yeah. Do you have any of those towns, Senator Hashim?
Jamaica. Yeah, Jamaica.
It's physically in Dorset, right?
Oh, the
Long-term?
school,
is,
yes,
of course, yes,
great
yeah.
question. Yeah,
But
yeah.
the schools in our area serve students from a pretty, so he goes to school with kids in your neck of the woods, up in Rutland County, so. yeah.
Right. Down from Pullman.
Yeah.
Got some kids in North Carolina.
Mr. Ellis, I see you're with us as well. Do you want to just introduce yourself to the committee, just so people know who you are?
My name is Kevin Ellis. I am here representing the Vermont Independent Schools Association. I'm a longtime lobbyist, journalist, and God knows what else. I live in East Montpelier. I'm not a founder of Sharon Academy, but I was there at the beginning. I was the basketball coach, the chair of the development committee, and God knows what else. So I was there at the birth of that institution. And I enjoy watching Mary take over the reins from us old people and drive it into the future. So any questions for me today or down the road, please don't hesitate.
Just curious, what year was Sharon Academy started? Roughly?
Let's see, my son is 37. It's 20 years old now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I don't have the date right.
No, that's
Yeah.
cool. Just wanted to, technically it's close.
I'm credited with building the gym,
Aha.
so at least raising the money. Howard Dean told us, we came to Howard Dean to try to get, when he was governor.
Yeah.
The state to guarantee the loan to build the gym, and he looked at our founder, Judy Moore, and said, oh, this is, we were 12 kids at the time, and he said, oh, you're gonna grow this thing, and she said, no, we're not. And they got in a little bit of
Uh-huh.
as only the former governor could do back then, and Judy didn't back down one iota, but it was a fun meeting.
Yeah, yeah. We should get Governor Dean in here at some point.
Yeah.
He has some good ideas around some of these issues. Well, we may be hearing, I know we'll be hearing from all of you again. The House is working on a bill having to do with anti-discrimination and independent schools. They're working on that issue. It'll come to us after crossover. We're going to have a little bit of a walkthrough on a related bill today. You're more than welcome to always be here.
We oppose, Visa opposes those kinds of discrimination at all levels. On our website, want us to write a letter, we shall do that.
Okay.
And we're available.
Great, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Hayden, we're good? Yeah, we're ready for Bill. Thank you. Thank you all. And please, again, feel free to stick around. And if you want to parler français, elle parle français très bien.
Non, je le doute, hein.
That's my secret belief. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball,
Hello, Senators.
how are you?
I'm doing well, Senator Capian. It's been a while since we had a chance to speak. I think it was probably at the Capitol Plaza, so.
It probably was. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you again. And I believe Lynn Coda might be jumping on at some point as well. Superintendent up there in Franklin Northeast. Remind me, Bill, where's Maple Run School District?
Maple Run, we serve the city of St. Albans, the town of St. Albans, and the municipality of Fairfield.
Okay.
So we're real close. Lynn Coda and I are real close to each other. We're neighbors, so.
So the reason we asked you to come in is when we were talking with Jeff Bannon of the NEA, we were talking about, and we're working on a miscellaneous ed bill that we're going to be taken through by Ledge Council tomorrow and pick up next week. But we're really looking at issues in the state where there may be some big discrepancies around offerings. In other words, I can just think of my own personal experience with my cousins up at a little school in the Northeast Kingdom, great school, lots of incredible opportunities, but compared to maybe some more urban areas, again, this is somewhat anecdotal, not as many opportunities.
So I can definitely talk to you about that from my career experiences, because I've worked from the Northeast Kingdom to St. Albans, so.
So we could certainly start there. And so what we're trying to figure out is, and a little bit with our friends in appropriations and others is, first of all, how big is the need? In other words, we do not want kids. We know kids are competing globally. We know kids are also competing with other kids, within the country. And we don't want kids leaving schools without as many opportunities as possible. You know, if you're the kid that really wants to take a class in Chinese, given the technology today, it seems to me that we want to be able to offer some of those innovative, exciting things. We're also quite cognizant of the fact that if there are two kids that really want to take Chinese, the school probably isn't going to hire somebody, nor would the person be able to, you know, financially figure out a life anywhere in Vermont with housing, et cetera, where they could just go and teach a couple classes of Chinese. So we're looking at different things, and I've been telling my own personal story here, where I'm taking a history of Boston class, my first online class ever, through Harvard Extension. Anybody can sign up. And I've been so impressed by how much you really can get through these online experiences, you know, with discussion boards, faculty member, all sorts of other supports out there. And so if this 52-year-old guy can do it, I bet a lot of people a hell of a lot younger than I can get something out of it. So that's the situation we're looking at. We're also talking with appropriations related to that. Do we need to have some funding set aside for schools that want to be able to offer things and just can't right now? So that's the situation.
So I wrote out, now hearing that, Senator, thank you for that introduction. That gives me some really good context. And I frankly want to say, I wrote some testimony, which I forwarded to Hayden. He has it.
Yeah.
I think to answer your question, I'm going to go off my scripted testimony because I think that will give you a lot
Sounds
more
great.
information. Part
Sounds
of it
great.
is on the second page. And I'm going to talk to you both as a superintendent, but also as a father of two daughters, one who's in college and one who's a junior at People's Academy in Morrisville. And I just want to give you all a little bit of my career experience. I started my career in my early 20s as a physics and chemistry teacher in high school and a little bit of calculus. I'm a trained engineer, actually, and I then have turned into education and have been in an education career for 25 years. I started in really small high schools.
In Vermont?
Actually in New Hampshire. And
Okay.
then came back over the river, back home, because I grew up in Rutland, so I'm back to the home state.
We hear
And-
about Rutland, the two guys to my right.
And I've been an education administrator for more than 20 years. Let's just say that. I haven't counted
great.
recently. And I was a tech. I think one of the reasons Secretary French said I was one of the people to talk to is because when I came back to Vermont, I became a director of technology. So I did all the IT infrastructure for Lomoil South and Morrisville, Elmore, and Stowe. And that's where I currently reside right now. And my daughter attends People's Academy. She's in a class of 60 kids in her junior year class. They lost and I said this in my testimony, but I'm just kind of summing it up. They lost a social studies teacher somewhere in the summer and couldn't replace that position. So she needed to fill an elective. And she went and decided that she wanted to try American Sign Language. The online learning worked so well for her and her learning style that she's doing ASL2 now and is planning to do more because she wants to become a physical therapist. And it really works for her. She's self-motivated, self-directed. Frankly, her mom, my wife and I are both educators. We never have to say boo to her. We're lucky. We're one of the lucky parents. And we just let her figure out her educational life. But she's really self-directed and she's self-motivated and she has a reason for doing it. That's where the online class works. It doesn't work for my oldest daughter, Megan, who's a sophomore in college. She was in the pandemic year and she was going to be a senior. So her senior year, she had to take AP Lit online. She said to me afterwards, Dad, she's a very successful student at Northeastern, architecture major, really high flyer. It didn't work for her because she's a social learner and she didn't get the social contact that she needed. And she really got disengaged. She likes literature. She got disengaged because she couldn't, even though there were kids in the building taking it with her, it wasn't the same as being in a class. So I don't want to sell online learning as the panacea. It works for some, but not for all. And then I worked in the Orleans Central, Orleans Southwest District with Craftsbury, Hazen, all those schools. And being so tiny, there's a lot of expansion of curriculum, but again, it works for some kids, but not for all kids. So it's an avenue, but it's not, I wouldn't want to, and I love techie tools. I mean, anyone who knows me, Lynn's right here, she could tell you, I love to play with the toys. But it doesn't work for everybody. And I just want to be clear about that, that it's a flexible pathway, but not the flexible pathway.
Did you know any of the, I don't know if we've talked about this, any of the Pennick from Craftsbury or Hazen?
Yep, I do. Yep, Pat and his family. It's great group of folks. And then, you know, I've seen it work in other parts of my career in Washington County and up here in Maple Run. I mean, we have a really rich tradition up here of using online classes. In the past 7 years, we've had almost 1,200 courses taken by kids.
Yeah.
But I
know their experience, you know, that's Patrick is my uncle. And so his kids were at Craftsbury Academy and, you know, again, great things, incredible, but not always a ton, I think, of different offerings.
Yep, especially when you have one teacher for all your math career.
Yeah.
You know,
right. If it doesn't click with that one teacher.
Exactly. And they Craftsbury and the other small schools in Vermont do a great job of figuring that out, but you just don't have the offerings. I had coming here to St. Albans, and this is my 4th year. What I learned that the offerings that can happen at BFA when there's 250 kids in a grade level. Yeah. It's just another class you go create. You know, it's not like you have to say, let me find a flexible pathway opportunity, because you can get, it's not personalized learning to the individual kid. It's personalized learning, and you find the groups of kids who want to do similar things. And that's, you're able to do in a bigger high school when you're not in smaller high schools. And that makes it really hard. Just as the example you gave about Chinese.
So Bill, can you, is it working out in that regard then in your district? I mean, are you using technology in some like?
Yeah. What I would, right now we have approximately 70 kids, I think, this year. I just looked at the enrollment that are on online classes, whether it's a remedial class or it's an interest class, you know, the first time to attempt the credit. I'll just give you a few statistics. Like I said, it was in here. I kind of went off script. But we have, over the past 7 years, we've had 1,170 semester online courses. I would take 350 of them out because that happened during 2020-21 school year because of the pandemic. So we created our online academy. And Coda could talk to you a lot more. She's pretty experienced in that. I'll leave that to Lynn to answer those areas. We average about 137 students a year that take a semesterized class, and about 50, you know, unfortunately, the kids that are accessing it are not mirroring our local demographics. There are about 90% of them are students that are that don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, and predominantly almost 60% of them are females. So it's that self-motive. And I put some, I talked to a couple of seniors up there earlier this week preparing for this. And it's the reason they like it, they're self-motivated. They didn't say that, but like, hey, I can take care of myself. I can schedule myself. One's a competitive dancer. We've had a student who was a member of the USA Luge team, junior world team for USA Luge. And he, a couple of years ago, is the way he completed his senior year, so he could be competing internationally. We've had a high-level U.S. equestrian rider. She was in Florida, Alabama for the winter, could do her classes that way, right? So they're motivated by some other extrinsic reason. Only the one student I talked to, Nick, who wanted BC calculus, that he's motivated by that content to use to get to that course. There's some sort of motivation behind it.
Have you tried it though with kids that, you know, again, I was speaking with some constituents recently, and some young women were saying that they didn't realize this, but talking to their therapist is better over Zoom than in person. And they were talking about, are there ways to make sure when they go away to school, they can continue to work with their therapist and get reimbursed for that kind of thing. Do you ever go to the student that, again, you might not know that much about and just say, hey, Sally, Mike, you want to try this class?
So I know our guidance counselors do that, especially we have, I said in here in my testimony as well, we have some students that it's been successful for family or personal reasons. You're in that ballpark.
Yeah.
And then also we've had students that have had family issues. We also, it has been successful for a student, like they didn't pass Algebra 1.
Yeah.
Let's do it online and it was successful. So I think I did say in here, I didn't give a percentage because it's different each year, but we do remedial and initial credit online. So initial credit means you haven't attempted to learn in that area. And a remedial is, hey, you didn't show your proficiency in that area. Let's use this as another method to do that. Because we find that that's more successful than repeating a course. We try not to have kids repeat courses. We try to find a different learning mode for them.
And before we move to Lynn, I'm just curious, and others may have a question about some of this, but funding for these kinds of things, this is all built into your budget. I'm curious about that. Secondly, is there either have you experienced personally, or do you know of schools where there's some real technological deficiencies that the state should know about to make sure that we can get funds to certain schools so that they too, around equity, can participate in these things that other kids can participate in?
Those are two really good questions. The first one I would say is we have built it into our budget. As I noted in my testimony here, we have one teacher that teaches 2 semesters. So we get 25 seats free for his teaching a course with virtual high school. We use virtual high school. And so we get 50 seats that way, but we always have to buy additional seats. And I'd have to go look at our budget for how much we actually spend on that. It's been 2.5 years since I've actually looked at that figure because I know it's built in. And I think we programmed for 200 seats, frankly, because that's kind of, as I told you, I knew where our average was, and we had that one pandemic year, so it seems to be working. And we just have that in the local budget. And then we also, the other budgetary piece that's really critical, like I told you, we have the high flying students, but we have some other students who are trying to access it, especially the ones for remedial. We have someone that works about 60% of his job, maybe 70. It's hard to tell because he's in the student support center. And I mentioned his name here. He's Scott Coolidge. He has been our online coordinator. And so he weekly works with VHS to see the student's progress. If a student's starting to slip back, communicating with the kid, communicating with the teacher, with the parent, let's help the student get back on. Do they need some remedial and some transferable skills to make sure that they can stay up with the course? That has been invaluable, but that's a big resource. I mean, that's, a going rate for a teacher now is $80,000 to $100,000 salary and benefits. And so I'm saying we're putting 60 to 70% of that in there. And without that, I know at my daughter's school, they do it with a paraprofessional. There's different ways of doing it. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just, you have to have some adult, I think, helping the students with it at some fraction of some job or full-time. And Lynn may have something more information on that. As for schools, it's, we've gotten so prevalent with the technology we're using right now today, right? So it's, I think most kids, and I don't know, I don't have any data on this, but I know in this district, every kid from first grade on up has a device. We have bandwidth at the school. What I worry for is my students who live out in Fairfield or live in Alburg that tuition in, or in Sheldon, where there's really poor internet access. I know at my house in Elmore, can't really do this right now, even though I have a DSL connection. So it goes back to the broadband initiative in the state.
Yeah, and I've seen the CUDs in some districts. I feel like they're really knocking it out of the park. We heard from Christina Holquist, who oversees this for the state, and I left the meeting feeling like she's got her eye on those areas, particularly where there's real need and equity issues. But I appreciate knowing that. Senator Chula.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Kimball, for speaking with us. Much appreciated. And thank you for your work. It's not easy. I was just wondering if there's still a program by which you can have a faculty member teach a VT-VLC class and get a certain number of students to be able to take a course for free. Do they still do that?
I believe VTVLC does. We don't work with them. As I said, we work with Virtual High School, but I believe they still do that.
And VHC doesn't do it?
VHS for us, that's why I said we get 50 free seats for our teacher teaching 2 semesters. It's 25. And I think VTVLC, if I'd have to go check it because I don't work with them, but I believe it's about the same idea as 25 seats for a semester.
Okay, so you get 50 per
I get,
class?
yeah, well, for a full year, we have a teacher who teaches 2 semesters. So it's 50 seats we get 25 for each semester he teaches, and he teaches 2 classes he actually does psychology. So
That's great, okay. And that's not the same gentleman who staffs the.
that's someone different. That's right. That's someone different. Yeah.
Okay.
That psychology teacher is one of your teachers.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's Mike Campbell. He's a social studies teacher in our social studies department, does a great job. He mentors, he actually, for Virtual High School, he teaches other teachers how to teach online. So he's a mentor to their instructors to get other folks to learn how to do it as well.
On a totally different subject, you mentioned that kids from first grade on have a device. I'm just wondering, as an educator, if you have any thoughts on the effects of screen time on children's brains.
Well, yeah, while we have the devices, they're not our primary learning, especially at the younger grades. They become more prevalent as we get into middle school. And they don't necessarily have the device with them all the time, but we have access and an ability to them. I believe kids should learn in a multitude of ways, and the device should never replace the human contact. And it's one of the things I learned early on in like the late 90s, early 2000s from a communications professor as a technology director. Right now, we're probably having 70% of the communication we could have compared to if I was sitting in the committee room with you. And we're doing it synchronously. If we take it to asynchronous, we're down to 8 to 10%. So there's just a lot lost. And that communication is the basis of learning. So we want that high level learning. We need to do it in person with the teacher there in the classroom.
Thank you.
Right. Senator Weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Superintendent Kimball, I'm still trying to get my head around the 90% of students, that 90% of the students are who do not qualify for free or reduced lunch are the ones who are requesting or utilizing the online access courses. And I understand that internet access potentially in your district's region is problematic. The question really is there in the school, is there enough bandwidth and access that allows fair use of the system of the remote courses, and that the inhibitor is somewhere else? It's not in the school facility itself.
It's not in the school's physical facility. Let me say it that way. Go ahead.
And we just follow up. And is there enough time in the school day for a student to utilize a remote program? Okay, thank you.
We have the 2 students I talked about here. I went and met with them during one of them, Heather. She had 2 blocks back to back, and she was working frankly on something else. And I said, why aren't you working on your online? She goes, oh, I'm already got that done. I said, great. You're doing your time management, but we usually block out a block if they're taking an online course. Don't have to. If a kid wants to load up, they could, but we try to discourage that.
Okay, thank you.
And would you just repeat that free and reduced number that Senator Weeks just mentioned, the 90%?
So, of the kids that take an online course, 90% of them don't qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
I was trying to see if there was like a home access issue or, that's.
Yeah.
I can't read into it at all. I had my data analysis person. I said, hey, can you give me a roster of all the kids that taken a course over the past 7 years? And then she said, yeah, I bet you want some demographic information. So she ran that for me as well.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Can you stick around for a few minutes? Well,
Yeah, I have this whole hour.
great.
says-
Okay, we've got until 3:30. Lynn, good to see you.
Good to see you. So I am sorry I missed the communication that we were meeting early, so I missed your opening. So I have something prepared to say connected to how we have approached virtual learning in FNESU. Would you like me to go there or somewhere
I
else?
think that sounds great. Why don't you go there and then we can always fill in with questions.
Okay, great. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Lynn Coda. I'm the superintendent for the Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union. We serve nearly 1,900 students in 10 schools across 6 communities in Bakersfield, Berkshire, Enosburg, Montgomery, Richford, and Sheldon. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to testify today about our experience with virtual learning in FNESU. So in the fall of 2018, pre-pandemic, we began a pilot at Enosburg Falls High School called the Flexible Pathways Academy. This program allowed our students to choose a non-traditional flexible pathway through their high school experience that could either be all in person, partly in person, or fully virtual. So students are able to choose a variety of learning experiences, including traditional courses, dual enrollment courses, personalized learning experiences in the form of what we call extended learning opportunities, where students choose a passion topic and use that topic to demonstrate proficiencies with certain standards. So when the pandemic hit, we expanded the Flexible Pathways Academy to our K through 8 as well. So this fully virtual school, we still have in place today. We still consider this a pilot program for us. It has allowed us to be really flexible for a variety of reasons for our students in order to keep them engaged in our schools. So for example, we have seen students access our Flexible Pathways Academy when they have either had an illness, a significant illness, or a family member has, and there was fear about the pandemic. We've also seen students access it because they have a desire to do something they find valuable during the day, like work or run a business or take care of a child, or a desire to learn at either a slower or a faster pace. We've seen students who engage in this to support academic learning while they're enrolled in one of our alternative programs, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And we've also seen students engage in this when their families have gone on extended, could be months-long family vacations where they otherwise would have had to disenroll from our schools and have an approved homeschool plan, so they've been able to stay engaged in our FNESU system while they were away. We've also noticed that some families who would otherwise be homeschooling have been engaging in our program. So during the pandemic and before the pandemic, we were partnered with VTVLC for our fully virtual high school option for our students. And at that time, we were exchanging time with 2 of our teachers for high school students to be able to attend VTVLC. In 2021, we chose to transition to the Edmentum platform with 2 of our middle school students. We had 2 students that wanted our virtual option, and because of teacher licensure, it was very complex to figure out how we would be able to do that in-house. So we used the Edmentum program with Edmentum teachers. So we found that platform worked very well for our students, and in the fall of 2022, we transitioned to using that platform with our teacher advisors. So we're using the framework that they give us, but we use our teachers to offer this virtually to our students. So one of the things that we've learned in FNESU is that we found great success with using an advisor model. We believe that it's helped our students to be more successful with the virtual learning experience. Our advisors get to know each of their students very well, and that personalized relationship has been the key to a high level of success and engagement we're having with the students who are enrolled in this program. We found that they have a consistent setup for each course that's helped remove some of the executive functioning barriers for some of our students that they had experienced during the pandemic. So there are several features. I won't get into the specific details that we feel Edmentum has that's helped our students to be successful and more independent. I think also the learner agency, the choice that they have, not only in the content that they're focusing on, but also in how they're going to demonstrate their learning, has been a big part of it. And then, the pacing and really explicit visual representations of where they are on the continuum of learning has been really successful. So what we have seen in FNESU is that given the increasing mental health challenges we're seeing within our schools, and with the diminished access to resources, to mental health services and alternative programs, we've had to develop 6 alternative programs within FNESU for students who demonstrate needs that exceed what can be served in the least restrictive environment of the general ed classroom. So additionally, we found that those students benefit from us having this Flexible Pathways Academy because they can be engaged with our teachers while they're in our alternative programs. So they're still working on our priority standards and our curriculum, and that's been a pretty integral part of us being able to stand up those alternative programs. So what we have learned is that virtual learning is not for every student. Students who are successful generally in our virtual school model don't need to be really motivated to do school in a traditional way. However, they must be motivated to learn, and they must be willing to develop a relationship with their advisor, and they must value the notion of the importance of learner agency and getting to have a say in the topics that they're choosing to learn about. So I welcome any questions you might have.
Yeah, Senator Jewett.
Superintendent Coda, thank you so much for being with us. I really
You're welcome.
appreciate how difficult your jobs are, especially during and post-pandemic. So thank you very, very much. I'm really glad that you've brought up your, alternative programs. I think often what I hear from folks is that their child or a student doesn't fit into a public school. And I often have to explain to folks that within a public school structure, you can often have alternative programs or even like alternative schools. I know in Burlington, we have Horizons and On Top, and at Essex High School, where I taught before, we had a program called ACE. So I just really appreciate that there's a concerted effort within the public sphere to meet the needs of all kinds of learners and all different kinds of talents, abilities, etc. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Ms. Coda at this point? No? Or Mr. Kimball? This is really helpful. I would still like to figure out the piece around the free and reduced lunch kids that aren't taking advantage of some of this technology. And if there's something that you think we should have our eye on related to that, let us know. Again, what we're in some conversations with the folks, it's really, I love that what Senator Gulick just said. How can we make our public schools more vibrant, more interesting, offer different classes, whether they're online or get different teachers in? Part-time teachers is something we're going to have a serious look at with the House. How can we, deal with this teacher shortage as well as not lose, well, only improve, the academics and the experiences that kids are having. So if you do have ideas, this is a place to bring them.
I have a few ideas if you'd like to hear them.
Sure.
The first is, I think one of the barriers, if we're talking about students who are economically disadvantaged, is broadband. I think that many of our students, if they're looking for a more flexible way to engage in school, it's going to be more challenging if they don't have internet access in their home. So I think that that's one piece of it. We've been able to purchase hotspots, so we can help with the connectivity, but we can't if there isn't any broadband access in that area. And we're pretty rural in this part of the state, so that definitely, I think, contributes.
Lynn, what percentage of your students would you say don't have access?
I knew that during the pandemic. I don't know that right now. I could find that out for you.
Okay.
I can tell you, Senator, I can tell you out in Fairfield that we're probably at about 50%, and it depends how you define access. If you define it as FCC, it's too low a level. A DSL connection does not, it's hard to do Zoom over DSL. And so you need the broadband. And so that's the big barrier, is what is defined as broadband access and what really truly is broadband access. I can tell you that I'm lucky, I'm privileged, and my daughters were privileged that they could get in a car and drive down to the high school, where I can't do it at my house. And I only live 5 miles from the high school.
You also brought up workforce. I'd just like to make a couple of points there. I'm actually away right now. I'm at the National Conference on Education and have just spent the last 2 days learning about Next Educator workforce, and have heard about some fantastic ideas about trying to incentivize people to come into the field of education. They shared in a session that I was in this morning that there's a scary statistic. I think it was in a national survey, I think it was 56% of parents report that they encourage their children not to go into education, which is alarming. And I think that that's something, if we're looking at the challenges that we have as a state in terms of our workforce, what could we do collectively to help people to enter the field of public education? And I think that's something that we should be thinking about in terms of people making career moves and coming from one field into education. And I also think that's something we need to be thinking about in terms of the work we do with the students who are in our schools right now, and providing opportunities for them to accelerate into an education field, whether that's through our CTE programs and offering them enough in those CTE programs where maybe they could graduate and then have a 3-year path to licensure and some employment in that last year, some incentive for them to come back and work within our schools while they're doing their student teaching. That was an idea that was floated today. And I also think that there is, if we could have a way to financially support pathways for our paraprofessionals to work within our schools. We have some outstanding paraprofessionals, and we have pathway options that exist, but generally you have to have a bachelor's degree to be able to access some of those licensure pathways. But if we could find a way as a state to be able to help people without bachelor's degrees to use the experience they're getting in our schools, that would be incredible.
Thanks, Lynn. We can always loop back to you as we continue our work on this. Bill, any other final comments from you? We need to take a few minutes of a break before we move on to our next meeting, but any concluding comments at this point?
Just thank you very much. Lynn hit most of the topics I would have on the workforce development. The only one I would add, which I know is on the docket of the legislature, but is housing. I lost over 5 candidates last year because they accepted the job, but then could not find housing affordably for the wages in which they make as educators.
Had the same experience.
And then, thank you. It really makes a difference when you're able to be with us like this. So thank you. And also thanks for everything you do. And we'll keep you posted on some of our progress on other fronts, and likely have you back later this year.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.